tit-for-tat attack in Sydney's gangland ward.
Brownie, they said there was literally a bounty on his head.
Brownie Ahmad, who is a known underworld figure,
Shot dead in a hail of bullets.
So Moz, we're back again. Sydney's underworld has exploded overnight. Shooting of Mahmoud Brownie Ahmad. Tell us what you know.
Well, about 10 to 10 last night, I got a phone call from somebody who had told me earlier, over the last few weeks, that Brownie Ahmad's life was in danger. Police had told me the same thing. And at 9:30 last night, that's what came true. He was visiting an associate in Greenacre. He was leaving the house, I believe, when driver came past, gunman got out, hail of bullets, and Brownie Ahmad is gone the way of his brother Wally, who was executed in 2016. But the warning signs were all there. I believe you actually even knew about an attempt.
As we know, many of these figures over their years create enemies, and he'd just spent 6 years in jail for another killing and had a number of enemies when he got out. And it was about 4, maybe 6 weeks after he got out, he was planning to go to a park in Rushcutters Bay in Sydney's eastern suburbs, and police got some intelligence that he'd long been a marked man, but that day that there may be a hit, and they called him and said, Brownie, you know, you're a wanted man today. We've got some intelligence. They're going to come after you. We know where you're going. Can you please steer clear? There's going to be kids and families there. It's a weekend, eastern suburbs, and so he did. And that was one of the first times, we believe, after he got out of jail, that they had knocked on his door and said, mate, you know, you're in strife, but there'd been plenty since as recently as last week.
Well, he actually went overseas after that. Now, his people were saying to me that was always planned. He wasn't leaving because of that, because he was fearless, like in a lot of ways. So he went overseas, but he came back knowing that there was a contract, and they said the police last Tuesday went and issued him with a firearm prohibition order, and he and his brother, who's known as Gags, Yusuf, who was also warned that his life was possibly in danger, but Brownie, they said there was literally a bounty on his head. I had a phone call just recently, in the last hour, from a guy who said this was being planned before he even got out of jail. Yeah. Like 18 months ago, that it was decided that the minute he got out, there was going to be attempts. And likewise, he knew that, and I think he was getting ready. He believed there was a certain individual inside one of the Alameddine clan associated family that were after him, and I think he was going to try and take him out. So this was very much a preemptive strike by people who feared. But he had a lot of enemies, didn't he? Like recently, he's been blamed for, suspected of being behind a shooting at Omar El-Amar's.
Yeah, so I guess Omar El-Amar really came on the scene for us late last year when he was kidnapped from his home in Condell Park, and there was incredible footage. Masked gunman rocked up. He was standing outside, put him in a car, forced him into the car, and drove off. But in recent weeks, Omar El-Amar's a very rich Sydney individual, has associations in the underworld, and our understanding is that Brownie had, spotted an opportunity to potentially extort him, and so on a Friday, they shot at his home in Condell Park in an effort to get money, in an effort as a bit of a warning signs, and then on the Monday following that, so pretty much less than 72 hours later, they did another drive-by shooting at a restaurant that Al-Amar owned, and this is all an attempt to get money out of him.
I think Omar El-Amar would be relieved that Brownie's dead, and I think there are a few other people. And, the police do have probably a major suspect, and they'll probably rank them, and it would be, as I said, an individual within Alameddine, that organisation, they'd be looking at. But let's face this, a senior cop had said to me, he said, he has been going around creating havoc for the last 3-4 weeks, organising drive-bys, not just that one from what I understand.
The Al-Amar one.
The Al-Amar one, but there are also, he's been standing over people from when he was in jail. Mm-hmm. And so the list of people wanting to knock him, I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that a few other people kind of help fund this together. Like not a GoFundMe page, but they seriously, there would be others, you know, that everybody knew it was about to happen. He was dead man walking, and he just didn't seem to flinch. And another guy rang and said, he's had that same Hilux ute, he's been driving it now for a couple of months. Now, those guys who live in that world, when they know that they're in danger, they switch cars, they switch addresses. He's gone back to Punchbowl, where he's a big, well-known figure. And then he's shot coming out of the house of another very well-known southwestern Sydney identity, you know, who's known to a lot of the crime families.
Yeah, well, and I've just got off the phone with a cop who said essentially the reason for him refusing to go overseas or go into hiding or do any of that, those kind of mitigation tasks, was essentially he didn't want to look weak.
Yeah, it's very much an image, and he was 100%. Very, very big on that. And I think he also maybe thought with the Almadine Hamzy walk seems to be in a bit of a lull. A lot of the major players are dead or locked up, or as we know, Masood Zakaria was overseas, wanted by police, not coming back. He might have thought, if I can get some quick money, that's why he was doing all these standovers. He was trying to re-establish the Ahmed name, which was weakened, you know, incredibly. Like, you had Wally dead. Yeah. His brother Rock was in jail. He got arrested and sentenced to about 13 years jail for part of a drug importation, along with some very well-known figures. And then you had himself. He was in jail and just out. So he very quickly tried to establish himself again, and he's upset people even before he was out of jail. You know. Yeah. And this is going to happen. You know, police. This one's gone. There's another character coming out next year or year after called Little Crazy. It just doesn't stop. It doesn't stop, no matter what they do.
We're in 2022 now when Brownie's been killed, but it was in 2016 at Bankstown Centro Shopping Centre on an afternoon having a coffee outside that his brother Wally, who was also a Mr. Big of the underworld.
He was huge. He was very, very big. And again, another person out of control at the time and was standing over people, and they were just pushing the boundaries.
And his death, and there's incredible footage of that too, where gunman comes up and shoots him as he's sitting there. That sparked a number of retaliatory.
Well, it actually started. Wally was shot because he was involved. There was a confrontation between two groups of men at Smash Repairs at Condell Park, owned by Wally Ahmad. Brownie was there as well. A gunfight, like seriously, like out of a Western or out of a Pulp Fiction. There's a shootout, a guy called Sawaz Jabaji. He was shot dead. Now, he's very well connected and related to the Elmir family. And that sparked, 3 weeks later, Wally shot dead. Then there's a guy called Assad, the executioner, he was known as. He had been kind of sprouting that maybe he was involved in Wally's death, that shooting. He wasn't. He was bragging. For that, he got killed by a guy called Blackie Barakat.
Cost him,
Blackie, in turn, was dead. So that's just the way they keep working. It's just, it doesn't matter. The cops can knock on their doors. They can do everything to try and stop them. They can warn them. Short of sending them overseas the minute they hear, I don't see how they can stop it. They can't. These guys are so determined,
You've been doing this, no offence, a bit longer than I have.
Maybe 40 years,
This is nothing new in those 4 decades, is it? No.
I remember, and the other thing is there's this romantic thing, in the old days, they didn't go shooting in public. That's a load of crap. My first gangland murder I covered was 84. There's a guy called Danny Chubb. He was shot middle of the day outside a fish and chip shop at Millers Point. I went on holidays. I went overseas for 9 months, came back. There were 10 of them dead. So, I mean, these guys... And then, I remember in the 90s, you had the 5T gang out at Cabramatta. The shootings, they were up to 40 a month, shootings. Same thing again. We had the Darwich Razak War, that was frightening, I mean, it's a well-known tale that one of the families had bought a rocket launcher to take out the other family. Now, they were going to use it in one suburb, and the cops said if they had used it, it would have taken out about 6 houses. So what we're seeing now, Brothers for Life, again, there was shootings, people being killed and shot in the street. So it's been going on since time immemorial, since, since I know, as long as I know, and I'm sure it happened before then, and it's going to keep happening, especially when you have massive egos full of hatred and lots of money. So I just think we'll probably have a little rest now for a few weeks, and then someone else will be, you know.
It's not to say that police aren't doing their work. I mean, last night, the first police on the scene were from one of New South Wales Police's top squads who have been the people to knock. They've been knocking on Brownie's door and carrying out these searches and telling him, mate, you know, you're in danger. They
were in the area to suppress any problems. Okay. They didn't they didn't do it. I mean, they can't be everywhere. And they are. They continually do. They don't want these shootings to go on. There's this just let them do it. Who cares? You know, the bad guys taking out bad guys. Let's face it, though, innocent people have already, there's been, in this war, one guy was shot dead last year at Hurstville, mistaken for Ibby Hamzy. They thought it was just a young man at a boxing match. The footage from an attempted shooting at the gym in...
the World Gym.
The World Gym. That's the most frightening I've seen in years.
Chilling footage has revealed just how close several toddlers were when bullets were fired at Prospect in Sydney's west.
The gunman only managed to shoot Alameddine associate Murat Galassi in the leg before taking off in this grey Mazda wagon.
It'd be great if these guys went up and had a code where they just took each other out in the middle of the night in the back of their head, but they don't. They shoot at any time randomly. And innocent people have died, and, you know, it will happen again, and that's why the cops do try and lock them up. I've been told that one of the MOs, especially for a lot of the Hamzy hits, has been trackers on cars.
Yeah.
It's yet to be determined if that's how Brownie was tracked down, but I think we find that might be the case. So the police are out there and they'll knock on doors, but it might be quiet. They're not really worried about retaliation as much as
in this instance.
As much as Brownie had some followers, there's not a lot of money in that crew, and Brownie's strong presence is now gone. The brother Yusuf, or Gags, you would think he would want to keep a low profile. He didn't have the fearsome reputation that his brother has, or both. You know, both Wally and Brownie were considered the really dangerous people, and they were the enforcers, and it's because of them that the Ahmeds became a very, very strong and feared family, and they're gone. And Rock's in jail, and he's, you know, he won't be looking at daylight for at least 10 years. So, as I said, there'll be other people coming out from other groups, and, you know, hopefully, I mean, there will be a calmness while the police try and sort out what's going on over the next 6 months.